go ahead and get started. So we're gonna go ahead and continue solving quadratic equations. Today I'm gonna show you two different methods of doing that, apart from the one that I already showed you, which is solving quadratics by using factoring. Now, at some point, factoring is not gonna work. So we gotta rely on completing the square or using the quadratic formula. I'm gonna go ahead and complete the square for the next two problems. And then the last one, I'm gonna use the formula. I think the formula is the easiest one. So you be the judge of that. So number one, I'm gonna go ahead and complete the square. To complete the square, the first thing you wanna go ahead and do is move your constant to the other side. So you're gonna be left with x squared plus 2x equals 22. Notice that I'm leaving a space. We're going to be using it. Okay. To complete the square, we want to go ahead and use your b value. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to take b divided by 2, and then we're going to square it. Okay. So in this case, b is 2. So we're going to go ahead and have 2 divided by 2, square it. That's going to be 1 squared, which is 1. Okay. So we're actually going to be adding that 1 to both sides of the equation. Because again, we have an equation, so we got to keep it consistent. So we're left with x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 22 plus 1, which is 23. So you have a perfect square. X squared plus 2x plus 1 is a perfect square trinomial. So what you want to do is you want to write it as a perfect square. Now, I'm going to show you the long way. At some point, I'm going to do it for the other one, but at some point you can kind of skip this. So because this is a perfect square trinomial, there's kind of a shortcut to do it, but let's just say you forget. So let's go ahead and factor it. If I were to factor this, I'm going to take my a times c, which is 1. And 2, so then I'm looking for two numbers. I multiply to 1 and add up to 2. Well, that would be 1 and 1, which means that my factors are x plus 1, x plus 1. And because they are the same factor, you can actually write them as x plus 1 squared. And don't forget, equals 23. All of this you could skip, and I'll show you in a minute how you can skip it. Okay. Anyways, once you get to this step, we notice that there's only one x. So as soon as you see only one x, you can go ahead and use inverse operations to get that x by itself. So I need to get rid of that square. So I'm going to go ahead and square root both sides. That's gone. So I'm left with x plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 23. You cannot simplify the square root of 23. 23 is a prime number. So we're going to leave that as it is. And then my last step would be to minus 1. So x equals negative 1 plus or minus radical 23. And that would be your answer. So as you can see, they're not whole numbers. This is why factoring doesn't work. And that is how you complete the square. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. Now, number 2 is going to be a little different, and you can see right away there's an a value bigger than 1, which is going to make a difference in how you complete the square. And this is where it could get a little bit more complicated for you. Now, first step, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and add the a to the other side. So then I'm left with 3x squared minus 6x equals 8. Now, what you want to do is to get rid of that a value, you want to make it into 1. So as you can see, you can actually take the greatest common factor out, which in this case would be 3. So then that would be x squared minus 2x. Okay. Now that you took the greatest common factor out, you can go ahead and complete the square. So I'm going to take my b value, which in this case is 2. And I know it's a negative 2, but it won't matter because you're going to square it. So there's no need. So again, use your formula. So that's going to be 2 divided by 2 squared, which is 1. So then I'm going to be adding 1 here. Now, common mistake would be a common mistake would be that you add 1 here. So then you add 1 right there. You're actually not just adding 1 because technically there's that 3 outside. So if I were to distribute that, it's not just 1, it's actually going to be 3 because 3 times 1 equals 3. So you didn't just add it 1 to the left side, you added 3. So because you added 3 to the left side, you also got to add 3 to the right side. Okay, so then that means it's going to be 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 11. Now here's the shortcut, and here's how you can skip the whole factoring technique. You know that it's going to be a perfect square, so you know that it's going to only have one parentheses, you know that it's going to have a plus. So the symbol is going to be always the one that it's right there. So in this case, it's going to be a minus, and then you're going to have an x, and the number inside is going to be that. Okay, so that's kind of my shortcut. The symbol would be that one right there, and the number would be your b value that you divided by 2 and u square. Okay, now don't forget that there's going to be a 3 right there, and then you also have the 11. Now, if that confuses you, it does take a little bit of time to understand the shortcut. Go ahead and factor it. It doesn't really matter. It'll take a little bit longer, but you'll still get it. Just know that your symbol is that one, and then that number right there is your b value, okay? Or the b value that you got after you divide it and then you square. All right, so let's continue to solve. Now we have a 3 in front of it, so that's the first thing you want to get rid of first. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 3. So then I'm left with x minus 1 squared equals 11 over 3. Okay, now I want to get rid of the square root. So I'm going to square root of both sides. So then I'm left with x minus 1 equals plus or minus radical 11 over 3. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and add 1 to both sides. So x equals 1 plus or minus radical 11 over radical 3. Okay, now the one thing that I do want to mention is talking about this problem is we can't really have radicals on the denominator. So we have to actually rationalize this because this makes an irrational expression. Okay, I'm not going to go really into it. Just know that you cannot have a radical on the denominator. So to get rid of it, we multiply the top and bottom by the denominator. Which leaves us with x equals 1 plus or minus. That's going to be radical 33. And this is going to be 3. Okay, so then that would be our answer. So again, completing the square is kind of a complicated thing to do. I like it a lot, but it's usually not the favorite one. Okay, all right. So last one, we're gonna be using the quadratic formula, which I think is the easiest one to do. And it doesn't really matter which one you do it. It's pretty easy compared to completing the square. So the quadratic formula looks like this. It's negative b over plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so that is a quadratic formula. If you remember, this is going to be your a, your b, in your C. So technically, all you got to do is plug them into the formula. So you're going to have x equals negative b, which is negative 3. Make sure that negative has nothing to do with that negative. So you're going to have two negatives right there, plus or minus b squared. So again, negative 3 squared minus 4 times a, which in this case is 1, and c is also 1, divided by 2 times a, which again is 1. Okay, so all I did was plug in my a, b, and c. Now all you got to do is simplify. Okay, so then I have x equals negative times a negative equals a positive, so that's 3 plus or minus. The whole inside of it, I would just put them in the calculator. That would be 9, 4 times 1, and that just be 4. So then that would be 9 minus 4, which is 5. And then 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay. In this case, there's nothing to simplify. The radical cannot be simplified. You would be pretty much done at that moment. Okay. So those are the two methods. You can either complete the square or you can use the quadratic formula.